Now we're getting into the juicy stuff of reading comprehension. And this is about the 4 levels of reading. And these 4 levels are, think of it like a triangle, pyramid, with each level getting more complex, more difficult maybe, not necessarily, but more difficult and more in-depth. And these 4 levels are we begin with elementary reading, then inspectional, analytical, and finally at the top of the pyramid with syntopical. And each of these levels concerns itself with a different sort of approach to reading comprehension and different skills that will be involved in not only analysing a book properly, but also analysing many books related to one subject and actually reading itself on a literal sense, literally just being able to read properly and not stumbling over yourself, not reading slowly just because you're limited by the basic skills that you learn in school. And these levels are actually cumulative. You don't learn each one differently. You learn the first, and then when you move up to the second level, inspectional reading, let's say, you take all the skills from the previous level and use it to improve your reading later on in the next levels. And you can work on all these skills at the same time, and they build on top of each other. That's one important thing to remember with this. And we start at elementary reading, and that's so cool because you learn it in the early stages of school, in elementary school. And this is, everyone watching this video, I hope, knows how to read on an elementary level, because all that is being able to read, essentially. Not for understanding, not in depth, not with good comprehension, but just being able to pick up a text and read it. And there's no physical barriers preventing you from doing that. You can read the text on the page and you can say the words. That's it. And that's not where we're really focusing on, because everyone can do that. Everyone learned that in school. And of course there's some tips and tricks to maybe get your reading speed correct, your rhythm, your flow. Some people like to use rulers to align their eyes to the to the line. Sure, we can talk about some of these tips later on, but the main things come in levels 2, 3, and 4. Level 2 is inspectional reading, and a lot of us will have done this in school. It's picking up a book and being able to understand the nature of the book very quickly. It's skimming, essentially. We read the title, the blurb, we find the contents page. What is this book about? That's what we're looking for. What is the book about? Is it worth my time? Am I interested in this book? And perhaps if we're doing a school assignment, we need to find out if that book is relevant to what we're doing. So we skim read the book, we look at the main arguments in the book, maybe the closing paragraphs of each chapter, and we try to understand roughly what the book is on about, what it's saying at a glance, and then we use that judgment to either know if we want to look at it further in analytical reading, the third stage, or whether it doesn't really apply to us and we can discard it, or if it does apply but maybe it's not so good, maybe it's written poorly, or it doesn't focus on what you want. And that's inspectional reading. It's skimming, and we will have done that in school. And the third stage really is the most important stage in this sort of course, because it's what we'll be doing the most for books, and it's what draws out the most understanding, at least relevant to a book itself. And that's analytical reading. And this involves more complex analysis of the book. It's less about reading the book and more about studying the book itself to draw understanding. And drawing understanding from our reading is ultimately the primary thing we want from reading, and that's what I want for this sort of series of videos, is to be able to read a book and actually benefit of it by gaining more wisdom and seeing the world differently, understanding concepts better, making links between other concepts. And that's all done in analytical reading. it's divided into 3 parts, if I can remember correctly. It's understanding what the book is about, which is more inspectional, to be honest. But then it moves on to what is the book saying, what are the problems the author's trying to solve, did the author solve these correctly, are there any points of criticism, and so on. These more deeper questions that involve really looking into the text and understanding their works from a logical perspective and reasoning with your mind, and it goes beyond the surface level and is more deep in that sense. And that's where a lot of the focus is, that's where a lot of the nuances are that we have to learn, and that's where a lot of the course will be focused on. And the 4th level is essentially what we take is syntopical reading, that's what it's called, because it combines multiple books related to a topic. And it's above analytical reading because when we take many different books relating to a specific theme or subject, such as love, war, faith, material, belief, all these sort of big ideas, we take several books, read them all analytically, and then we sort of frame them around that main idea, that topic, syntopical reading. And I didn't know what that was at first, that idea. A lot of us will never have encountered it, will never have been required to do it beyond a school perspective, like a school level, basic level. And that's okay. Like, I didn't know what this was before picking up how to read a book, but I think later on in your reading career you might want to consider it. And it's more of a project sort of thing. It's more for a project relating to arranging the arguments of the people before us in literary history, framing what they have to say, seeing what people would have theoretically said to each other about the subject. It's sort of framing the argument on the wall and looking at it from a modern perspective, lucky as we are, to be able to see from thousands of years ago to the present, what did the great authors, the great minds think about this theme. And then we can sort of fill in the blanks ourselves, maybe. It's a good sort of planning exercise. But we were not going to stress about that too much now, because most of the difficult content we'll have to think over, will be analytical. How to read a book analytically, fruitfully, for max understanding and max wisdom, because that's what we want. And that's, in the next few videos I'll be going over each step in more or less detail, depending on how much they deserve it, and really finding out how we can maximize each stage of this learning, these levels, 4 levels. And most of that will be around analytical reading, but we'll touch on all of them. And this is a good foundation to know, because hopefully it's one of the last big theoretical videos that we have to cover the basic ideas of getting better at reading. In the future there'll be more practical, actionable things that you can actually go out and do yourself in your own reading. So that's it for now.